Design, Innovate, where I will be talking about design and how to use design concept and principles in creating an immersive learning environment. We'll look at education methods, technology, and legal policy to make that happen. My name is Sungna Burke, and I am your host. And our subject for this episode is unlocking potential, basically personalizing learning using AI. And so, hopefully, you will enjoy this session. This particular session is for parents, students, educators, my homeschoolers that are out there. We're going to dive into ways to make some subjects and some topics personalized using AI. Before we get started, let's just jump into this video real quick. Once upon a time in a quaint town, there stood an old school building, a relic from the industrial era. This painted the picture where the foundation of our education systems were laid. As we step into the building, we found ourselves in a classroom from a bygone era. A teacher stood tall on one side while children sat attentively on the other. It was a scene that symbolized the traditional one size fit all approach to education, where authority was paramount. But as we look closer, we notice two children sitting, their faces reflecting disengagement. It was a stark reminder that this rigid method wasn't for everyone. The setting shift again. Children were no longer in rigid rows, but still separated. The scene hinted at progress as it introduced diverse learning. Yet, despite the changes, education remained predominantly text based. A diverse group of children took center stage. It was a tapestry of backgrounds and learning styles, a reminder that children are unique. Here we realize that education should adapt to their diversity. And in the final scene, we glimpse the future of learning. Four images showcase children engaged in different ways. Some learned outdoors, others through hands on experience, and some still within the traditional environment. It was a harmonious blend, a testament to the idea that the future of education lies in embracing various approaches. All right. So hope you just kind of enjoy that. I just kind of want to kind of give you a visual of what I consider to be a problem. You have a diverse group of children in a space that is not equal for each individual child. And so our educational system adopted the standardization that was part of the manufacturing process during the industrial era. And what that means is that we kind of treat the process more of like an assembly line. And I just want to take time because I always want to, I have so much empathy for our teachers because they are they don't have the autonomy that they need to explore and create, innovation and creativity that allows our children to become critical thinkers and creative individuals. And so, my deepest empathy for the teachers that are, some schools have a little bit more autonomy than others. But when you think about public school systems, sometimes as you get to those school systems, especially in marginalized area, that autonomy is lost. And so the struggle is, how do you provide personalized learning for a diverse group of kids? So you have classrooms where teachers are challenged with dealing with 15, 20, 25 children at one time and trying to accommodate their different learning needs. Unless your child has a been diagnosed with a particular disability where and even in that sense, is that equal, or is there equality for that child when that child is moved and put into a different room and not in the other room where all the other kids are, right? Um, and if your child doesn't have a IEP plan, which is an individual educational plan, which all children, I believe, should have, but how do teachers do that and accommodate that for all kids, right? But they should, because each child is different and should have an individualized plan for their learning journey. And so, how do we do that? And that is the journey that I'm on. How do we create that? But I just want you to understand what the problem is. We have, you know, one teacher, a lot of children with different needs. And what ends up happening is there's a method of teaching, and it's kind of going, we treat it like an assembly line because we're dealing with this standardization. You're in this grade, and so you learn this, and you go here, and you go here, instead of opening that up and say you're in this age range and this is your skill set, really more your skill set. It has nothing, there is there's some behavioral analysis that goes along of behavioral theories about age appropriate and where that child is developmentally, but even with that, it's not a group thing, it's an individual thing, right? And so we should be dealing with our children based on an individual level. And so instead of going and saying, okay, you're going here, we're doing this, and we're going to go here, we're going to go here based off grade age, right? And then the children that didn't get the information, what is happening to those kids? Are we saying all these children have some type of disability because they are not receiving the information? Our children have some type of disability because they don't want to be static in a classroom and they want to move, right? They need to move. They don't want to sit in the classroom. They want to stand up. Oh, well, they have attention deficit because they can't sit in the chair and sit there and listen. Let's change the way they receive information. Maybe they do move around. Maybe they learn better that way. Maybe that particular child does, and this particular child does not. And so that is the problem. How do we create an immersive and equitable learning space for our children? I am going to propose technology because I believe that technology gives us affordance. If you look at just about any industry, you can see how technology has advanced that particular industry. If it's medical manufacturing, right? If it's construction, you can look at those spaces and see how technology has evolved. Recently, someone said to me that if you take a doctor and then take them back to a period in history, maybe let's just say the 1900s, will he be able to navigate the actual physician room, right? If you take a contractor or a laborer or a factory worker and put him in a facility, a plant back in the 1900s, will he be able to navigate the room? The answer is probably going to be no. But if you take a teacher and take that teacher back to the classroom from 1900, they will still be able to navigate the room because there has not been a lot of change, right? And so technology is changing the way we do everything, and we are being influenced, and sometimes badly, right? And so that's a whole nother conversation that we're going to do an episode about the consequences of technology, because there is consequences of technology. And so I want everyone to kind of understand that I'm an advocate of technology, but we need to be very careful when we implement technology because it has the potential, right, to continue to perpetuate disparities in certain marginalized communities, right? And so we have to be careful with the technology, but it also can shape us in a positive way if used responsibly. And so that's the reason why I believe that technology can kind of help create these spaces. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about Chat GPT, which is an AI platform right now. It's here, AI is here. There is no getting around it. And so let's embrace it. Um, let's see what these future technologies can do in our environments. And so I kind of want to kind of go over um, creating a um, game out of learning history. I took history in school, did not care for just kind of sitting there and just been told and just been fed this information, right? You're just sitting here and I guess it all depends on teachers because they do play a part in the way the teacher is disseminating the information. But if it's one teacher versus how many other teachers that are not making those engagements or those interactives more engaging, then those particular kids are going to suffer. And so for me, history was not an enjoyable and engaging subject. I'm just fed this information and these dates and this happened, and really I wasn't engaged in the process, right? And so there's many ways of doing that. I really prefer virtual reality, and so at some point I want to show some of how you can be immersed into a virtual environment. And so that is that visual component, right? But in everything, we have to phase it out, right? And so let's AI, ChatGPT is here. Let's see what can we do with it right now, right? Because the changes that I would love to implement now is going to take time. And so, but still, let's see what we can do for the children that's currently in school right now, right? Before I get my PhD and I get out there and I start working. Um, Before then, what are we doing with the kids right now? So do my child have to wait for you? No, right? So let's see. Hopefully, this can help my teachers, parents, homeschoolers. So let's just kind of dive into ChatGPT. And so I am going to share my screen. And I want to say if you do not have if you don't have a ChatGPT account, what I do recommend is that you go to ChatGPT. I'll create a link below in my in the message below so that you can actually see um, the link, create an account, and then um, get yourself logged in so you can start playing around with the tool. So hopefully you can see my screen. And this is just, actually I don't have it up yet. Let's get it all, let's see. All right. And so that's that great thing about technical difficulties I'm having. Just give me 1 second while I get my screen all set up. All right. And so what we're going to talk about today is ChatGPT and then using plugins. And so let's try that one more time. All right. So hopefully you can see my screen. And so I'm using ChatGPT 4, and right here I'm going to use the plugin time port. If you have not, so you have to actually, and this is the thing when you talk about, I have to take a time to just deflate just a little bit. I'm using ChatGPT Plus. In order to use the plugins, you have to subscribe to ChatGPT. So there is a free version of ChatGPT for now that allows you to kind of commute and chat with ChatGPT. But with anything always come, the dollar. Like, we are in a capitalist, country, and so this is our economic structure, and everyone, it's all about making money. And so in order for you to use the plugins that have been created for ChatGPT, you must subscribe to ChatGPT Plus, and you can tell I have that version here, but it says Plus. and that's $20 a month. And so, but I really believe that it is some of the things that it offers. It's beneficial, and so I know it becomes the issue when you're talking about schools in marginalized areas that have limited resources and funding. But if we can spend millions and billions for, and I'm not going to go down the list of things that we spend millions and billions of dollars on, let's give that to our education system. But let's first give our teachers raises. So here I'm talking about the time port um, plugin. And so I really like this plugin because I feel like it offers you an opportunity to explore. And so here's what this, so once you actually click on the plugin, we're going to say in the message, we're going to go here, we're going to say play time port. And the reason why I like this here is because a child can get on here and explore different times in history and kind of go through this process. I will say that I have noticed that it is, for me, what I would do is if I had a child that, like, if you look at the wordings, you have, historical, you have suggestions, you have journey. So it all depends on the vocabulary. I don't want to put an age or grade on it because I don't think that's relevant. I think that some of these words may be a little challenging for certain kids, and so now, even if time port, if you're listening to this podcast, what would be nice is that if this was highlighted and I can click on it to get the definition. Now, granted, I can come down to the prompt down here and say, what does historical mean? But we're talking about children, right? And so would be nice if historical, some of the words that you embark, what does that mean, right? So some words that children probably, I'm not even say children, there's some adults that don't even know what embark means, right? So just having some words that seems that you wouldn't say on a regular basis, maybe highlighted with a definition for kids, I think that would be great. And so basically, once you type in play time port, you get an introduction of, what you want to do. So you can go into any history. And so I'm going to say, well, you know what, let's talk about the Civil War, right? What is that, right? Maybe that's the subject of your class. And so you type in Civil War. And so you're going to be able to play this game and explore. And so what I do love is that it gives you a description. It tells you exactly what was going on during the Civil War. And so it gives you your inventory. So these are things that a child or an adult or the person who's using this here can use. And so here's the storyline. You're talking to, talking to Private Jonathan. He's a young and earnest man. It gives you a little details. And then it asks you some questions, right? Are you ready to support the union cause, right? And so I'm going to say, union cause, what is that, right? And I'm going to say, what is the union cause? And so this is great. So now I'm interacting, right? If I was in a history class, that may be the union. Well, what is that? What does that really mean, right? And so now, but another child may already know it. And so now the teacher has to decipher, do I define what this word is? Or do I keep on moving? And I don't care what grade you are in, because it can be some high schoolers that don't know what that is. It can be some adults that don't know what that means, right? And so it's important for us to understand that each child is different. And the information that we're giving our children, if we want this to be an equitable learning experience, has to be tailored for that particular person, that individual, right? And so it goes in and it talks about the union cause. Is very great, so here's, if you read, I'm not going to read this through, but I want you to kind of go around and I want you to log in and kind of play with this here, so that you can kind of see what are some of the things you, and it says, would you like to continue the conversation with Jonathan? And I'm going to say, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna say no. You know what? Show me a map is what I want to know. Show me a map. Now, there are plugins that actually have um you have the ability to do charts and more visualization items, but you need the plug-in for that. This one here, because it's still text-based, is actually giving you just a kind of description of what that maps look like. And so it describes, you know, this map is detailed and it shows the territories, the North and the South. And so it gives you this description, which I kind of really love. So and then it continues to ask you questions, right? And so that's the great part. Like it continue to ask you questions. And so, you know, I want to know, like, this person that everyone is talking about, right? Who is Harriet Tubman, right? So let's see what they say. So, and I love it's like storyline, like his eyes, you know, light up with admiration. And so, ooh, admiration, what does that mean, right? So let's highlight that, people. And then it talks about, you know, the Underground Railroad. It talks about what the name they used to call her. Bam, it's right there, right? And so, so here he asks me, I love this. Would you like to inquire more about Harriet Tubman? Engage in different conversations with Jonathan, explore other options. And so let's explore other options just to see what the other options are. And so this is almost like a game, but it's text-based. And so you can kind of continue, you know, the conversation. You can kind of go on a quest, and or you can check your inventory, kind of see what's inside the inventory, and you can actually kind of go in and play. You know, they'll give you like different quests, like this particular person, you have this mission and you need to do this here, and this is your inventory in order to do that, right? And so, oh my, look at that, learn about Civil War technology. Well, yeah, I want to learn about right, because that's my topic. That's not where that was not part of this session. I was going to do something else, but this was not my option the last time I was playing around with this here. So let's check that out, right? So Jonathan, he's gleaming. What is that, right? And so let's get those words underlining. And so he talks about technology, right? He talks about the railroads, telegraph. I love it, right? And so these are things that the child can individually kind of go through when you're talking about a particular subject, right? And I know we all about testing and standardization, and so we want to make sure we gave all kids this information. But are we teaching our children to test, or are we just teaching our children, right? Is it a learning experience, or is it a method of assessing? And assessment is a great thing because you really want to know if the child is learning. But the way we're doing it right now, if I am a person who have anxiety when I take a test, does the test actually demonstrate what type of learner I am? Right, I'm gonna leave that question for you. This particular plugin is allowing children to explore a subject. What's great about it is that I may be asking about, you know, the Civil War, and some other child may want to, you know, may want to know about the Spanish War. This allows them to explore it. Where for me, let's go back here, right? I select learn about Civil War technology because technology is important to me, right? Maybe figures, maybe someone really want to know about Abraham Lincoln, right? So the child has autonomy over what he's learning, right? And when you have that, you're going to deep dive into the things that you find of interest. So since technology I enjoy technology, there's a high percentage of chance that I am going to continue to go towards those things, right? But technology may not be, that subject may not be appeasing to all children. And so, or maybe the teacher is saying, hell, here's the options, and she's kind of went through this process and she knows what type of information is going to be presented and say, okay, you can pick whatever. I know you need to take some type of assessment or test and then figure that out, but still giving the child an opportunity to explore these things, right? Or maybe she say you can only explore, 2 or 3. You really want to give the child the options to kind of explore these topics in more details based on their interests, right? And maybe none of this is interested to them, right? But then you can say, hey, do you like railroads? Do you like, you can kind of go down to kind of help motivate the children in the direction, right? And so I love it. This is a tool, and I want to stress that this is a tool that you can use in your classroom, in your homeschool environment, as an adult, because you just want to learn about this information, right? And so here we have a tool. Let's use it. Let's start using the technology that we have out there. So, but I caution, right? As a teacher, or even homeschoolers, as parents, or you're teaching, let's make sure you kind of go over this information. Look at the information before you give it to the child, right? To make sure that it's bringing back the right information, because AI is basically, it's gathering this information from the public information that's from out there, and then it does learn different behaviors, but we want to kind of make sure that the information is relevant, right? And I know some teachers listening to this and say, I don't have the time, right? So that's a problem, right? And so go back to government. How do we get more money to these school districts so that they can provide learning experiences for our children, right? We can spend millions and billions of dollars on, right? That's how long the list is. And I don't want to get into politics, but here, our children need this. Here is more important, right? Because if they don't get the information, or their learning experience is not equitable, what happens is that they don't pass your assessments and your standardized tests, and then they don't go off to college, and then they don't get good jobs, and then, right? So until we change, or put forth some type of paradigm shift in the way we assess our kids, and take our children through this process of adulthood so that they can become successful citizens in this world, we need to make the experience more equitable for all kids. All right, so let me just stay focused here. And so I could say, let's search for Harriet Tubman, right? So let's you know what? Yeah. Let's search. Uh-oh, it helps my. And let's see what we get. And there is gathering this information. And okay, so what he's saying, determined to find them, right? It's telling us about her journey. You can go across several paths, follow the North Star. What does that mean, right? And so a child can see that maybe a child is interested in space. And you say star, and now that's a key word. And now they say, okay, follow them. What does that mean, right? And so I love this here, right? There's different ways that you can kind of go through. You can investigate the campfires. I mean, just options, right? And it's based on the child exploring these different topics. I think this is just great, right? There's a lot of things that needs to be improved again, especially the wording. The wording, depending on what skill level the child is at with their vocabulary, may be problematic. So I think that, again, Timeport, or if someone else wants to create a new, this is a great market right now. If someone creates another plugin, let's think about how do we make this here easier for children to kind of learn this information. And I'm not going to say children, let's just say learners, because you have some adults that may not know some of the wording, right? And so let's kind of highlight some words that are not part of, I hate to say everyday, because then the person that speaks that well all the time will say, well, so, but anyway, so let's just kind of like, terrain. I mean, I don't know how often people use that word, right? But do they know what terrain means? If you're talking about someone whose vocabulary is limited, do they know what that is? So let's just kind of highlight that. I love this here descriptive. I love the ability to interact with Jonathan. And so here, I just kind of want to say that AI can be a tool for you to use. It shows promising, right? And so your child is able to explore different subjects. History for me was a challenging subject. And I think this is more, I think it's very interesting. And so let's see how we can use these tools to make our learning experience more engaging. It's a small step in a big problem or a small solution to a big problem. The inequities that you find in classroom spaces is very complex, especially when you're dealing with diverse learners. And so my journey is to kind of figure out different ways. And I will be proposing different ways because our children are different, right? And so some children may do well in a structural, rigid, authoritative teacher-student environment, right? Where information is just disseminated and just kind of fed to them, and they're just able to receive it and just soak it up. Some children really needs hands-on. That's the way they learn. You have adults that'll tell you, I learn better by doing, right? Well, yeah, they should be teaching that. That should be a method of how we disseminate information for some children. Some children are just visual. They need to see all the, the visual, just show me how to do, show me when you talk about the map and I see the map, right? And I know we have the globe and all those are things that I do recall having in classroom environments. But how about there is a virtual reality app where you can actually go into orbit. And when I tell you the experience is very immersive, I'm afraid of heights. When I was in the spacecraft, I accidentally fell. I mean, now literally, now let me just explain this here. I am literally sitting on the floor in my house. I'm on the floor. I'm aware that I'm on the floor. When I put the Oculus headset on, I was aware that I was on the floor. When I started the app, in this virtual world, it looks like space. It has the feeling of space. So that's there, that latency there. So you have, you're feeling like you're in space. And I immediately became sick after I fell because it was a visceral experience. So I felt like I was actually falling, and I had to snatch the headsets off. And I just laughed. I couldn't do anything but laugh because I know I'm sitting on the floor, right? And so there is something to be said about virtual reality and being immersed, that the brain actually thinks that you are in this immersive experience. And so how can we use that? How can we take those visceral experience to teach our children, right? And so instead of saying, I love this example that I just showed you with ChatGPT, where we're talking about Civil War and we're actually exploring, and we can talk about characters and we can kind of chat and, have this discussion, right, with Jonathan, right? And so maybe we can get Jennifer or something. I don't know why we picked Jackie or somebody. Let's switch, there should be an option to also select who the person is. So time plot, that's just a side note for me. But to be able to chat is very cool, but how about if I can actually see the actual place. I could actually walk and look at what was going on, and that the artifacts that are around me are relevant to the time, right? And so now that visceral experience, I'm taking that away. Think about as a child, the things that you remember as a child, very, very young. And those experience, if you think about it, emotionally did something to you that you remembered. I can remember in preschool, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but there was a teacher that every time I leave, she would pretend as though she was crying, and she was like, oh, oh, and I mean, literally, I felt so bad, like I was leaving her and she's crying. I remember that to this day because I felt for her because she was crying because I was leaving her, but I had to go home with my family. But she wanted to tell me, like, that was her way of saying that she's gonna really, really miss me. She was so sad that I was leaving. And I never ever forget about that, right? So that was an emotion that I had to, that experience. And so if we take that same concept, if I'm teaching about a particular subject that the child is not able to relate to, how about instead of me just talking about it, I take the child into that particular environment and let the child explore and experience that, right? And then let's see what type of experience that the child gets from that. How much do they understand, right? And I'm not going to say memorize. How much information from that experience do they understand? Did they comprehend? Do they remember the artifacts? Can they imagine the texture, right? So how about that, right? Now, I will say that virtual reality is not for all kids because, Matt, I love you. Call me up. Let's talk about some research because I wear glasses and, it's hard. I have to put my contact lenses on because that headset didn't work with my glasses, right? So those are things that you have to worry about. Children with high sensory issues, autism, some kids it works well with. All the movement and light sometimes can be an issue. So again, I'm not saying that virtual reality is for all children. I'm just saying that all children are different, and some children may learn by using virtual reality in the classroom, right? I'm not saying that the current traditional environment where there's this teacher and these kids and now they're not in these roles, some of them are in little 4 groups, right? I'm not saying that doesn't work for a child. I'm just saying it's not working for all children, right? So that's the point that I want to make. ChatGPT may not work for all kids, but it may work for 1, 2. And so when we talk about a diverse environment, we're talking about different methods of experiences for different children. How do we do that? Well, that's my journey. So if you want to help me with this here journey, if you are a teacher, if you are a parent, if you are interested in being part of this process with me, I will be doing some workshops. I also will be doing surveys. I'm creating a prototype where we could kind of go through this process of trying to figure out how do you determine, which method works, right? So that becomes the challenge. How do I determine which method works for which child? And so that's the thing that we need to figure out, because we can't say, like I'm here saying, I love, VR, I love augmented reality, right? But it doesn't work for all children. And so how do we determine which child it works for is the goal, right? And so my petition is always transforming education is not an individual journey, but it's a community effort. Your input, whether it's positive or critical, is valuable in my PhD journey. So I'm asking you if you can if you like this here video, give me thumbs up. If you don't, leave a comment. Tell me the things that I can do better. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I believe that through collaboration, we you and I, can develop strategies to benefit all children, because that's my goal. So together we can make a significant impact on the future of education. Please, please feel free to share your thoughts and insights. They're crucial to our collective process, not just me. So, I mean, I'm homeschooling. My other son is off to college. I don't really have children that's actually in the school system right now, but I'm doing this PhD for all those children, right? Because I know I can see the data talks for itself. And so we as a collective community need to try to figure out ways on how to create, a more immersive environment. Government, send the education system some more money. Let's pay our teachers a little bit more. So to learn more about my research, you can go to www.letdi.org. Also, if you are interested in being part of the workshop surveys, focus groups that I'm doing, if you would like for me to kind of come out and talk to your school to let's figure out different ways that we can kind of implement some of these technology, please let me know. There's a link if you want to actually be part of the research. It's in the details. Just click on that, fill in your information, and we'll be in contact with you. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. Subscribe to my video if you like it, share it if you love it. And let's just raise the awareness about our classroom environments. And then before I go, I just want to say one thing. Parents, you are responsible for your child's education. It is your job. It is not the teacher's job. Let's get on top of this. Like, let's figure out, if you know that you have a child that is struggling, that is not getting the information that they need, or not, the learning experiences should be enjoyable. Your kids should not be hating school. If they are, let's figure out why. It is not always, the teacher is your helpmate. And so partner with your teachers. Together, you guys can kind of figure out a way to, find a plan for your child. There is IEP plans out there. There's all types of rules on how to do that. So if you're, homeschool, think about it. I know it's a struggle, to kind of get it started and get something set up. But as parents, this is, these children are ours and our responsibility. And so go through the different phases to do what's best for your child, so that they can that they're getting the information that they need, right? And that their learning experiences will help them in life. We do need to, I'll get about content and content relevant information. How does that content, not only how is it delivered, but how does that content relate to what you're going to be when you grow up? If you're giving me a bunch of information that's not relevant, our kids are super smart, and they know, like, you telling me to remember what year the Civil War started. Well, guess what? Google, can you, right? So they're aware of that. And so let's make our children more critical thinking. Let's use the tools to help them become critical thinkers. But parents, you are their first teacher. So let's just, let's make sure that you guys are ensuring that your kids are getting the best learning experience possible. So again, thank you for joining this episode. And please leave your comments. Again, thank you, and happy AI.